My name is Eleanor Vance, and at 66, I thought I had felt the sharpest stings life could offer. I was wrong, for 42 years. I shared a life with Arthur Vance in Silver Creek. Arthur was a master mechanic who could coax a roar out of a dead engine with a whisper. To the world, he was a local fixture. To me, he was the horizon. But as I stood by his casket on a gray Tuesday, I realized that the man I loved was a stranger to the sons we raised. Julian, our eldest, stood to my left. At 45, he was a man of glass and chrome. To my right was Caleb. At 40, he was Julian's shadow, a man who traded his conscience for a seat at Julian's boardroom table. They didn't look like grieving sons. They looked like men waiting for a flight. Julian kept checking his gold Rolex, his eyes darting toward the exit. Arthur's death had been ruled a tragic accident. A pressurized tank in his workshop had failed, turning his sanctuary into a furnace. The body recovered was burnt beyond recognition, identified only by the silver wedding band fused to a finger. I was too broken to question it then. Julian spoke of legacy and progress, code words for the massive development project he wanted to build over Arthur's workshop. Arthur had refused to sign off on it for years. Dad was old school, Julian told the crowd, his voice oily. But we must look to the future. As they prepared to lower the casket, a cold wind swept through the cemetery. I reached into my purse for a tissue, but my fingers brushed my phone. It vibrated, a long, steady pulse that felt like a heartbeat. It wouldn't stop, so I pulled it out just an inch. A message from an encrypted number glowed on the display. My breath hitched as I read the words, "I am alive. That is not me in the box. Don't trust the boys. They are watching you. Run." The world tilted and I struggled to keep my footing. I looked up. Julian was staring at me, not with concern, but with a sharp, predatory intensity. He noticed the phone. He noticed my hand trembling. He took a step toward me, his fingers curling like claws. "Mother, are you all right?" he hissed. Behind him, Caleb adjusted his tie, his face pale and sweating. They weren't mourning, they were guarding a secret. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. If Arthur wasn't in that casket, who was? I realized my own children were my greatest threat. I forced a sob, using grief as a shield. "I just need a moment," I whispered, tucking the phone away. I could feel the heat of the screen through the fabric. The casket felt heavy, not with the weight of a man, but with the weight of a lie. The hunt had begun. The funeral ended in a blur. As we walked to the limousine, Julian's hand stayed firmly on my elbow, his grip like a shackle. I could feel the digital recorder I had secretly grabbed from Arthur's hidden desk earlier that morning, pressing against my ribs. We arrived at the estate. It was a house built on Arthur's sweat, but my sons moved through it as if they already owned the deed. "Mother, you need to rest," Caleb said, his voice thin. He poured brandy, his hands shaking so violently the crystal clinked against the decanter. Julian sat in Arthur's favorite chair. "We need to discuss the workshop." "Mom, we need you to sign the power of attorney papers tonight so we can protect the estate." He produced a stack of legal documents. He didn't want to protect the estate. He wanted to liquidate it. "Arthur isn't even cold in the ground, Julian," I said. I looked him in the eye, searching for the sun I used to read to. There was only ice. I knew then that Julian viewed my husband's death as a business solution to cover his massive debts. I feigned a dizzy spell. "I need to lie down." I retreated to the bedroom and locked the door. I waited until I heard them arguing downstairs. I pulled out the voice recorder and hit play. Arthur's raspy, urgent voice filled the room. "Eleanor, if you're hearing this, the accident has happened. Julian and Caleb have partnered with Silas Thorne, a fixer for offshore developers. They needed the workshop land. They think I'm dead, but I found a way out. Look in the old floor, safe at the shop." I stared at the recorder. My husband had been hunted by our own children. If they found out I had this recording, I wouldn't make it to morning. I had to get to the workshop, but a black sedan was still idling at the end of the driveway, watching me. My phone vibrated. "They are coming to your room for signatures. The attic crawl space leads to the garage. Samuel is waiting at the north gate. Don't take your car." I grabbed a dark coat and moved toward the hidden panel in my closet. I crawled through the narrow space. Below me, I heard my bedroom door being forced open. "Mother? I know you aren't asleep," Julian called out. His voice had dropped the facade of kindness. It was cold, predatory, and final. I didn't look back. I reached the garage and slipped into the freezing night. I ran to the gate where a beat-up truck sat in the shadows. Samuel, Arthur's loyal assistant, pulled me inside. "We have to move, Eleanor," he whispered. "Julian's men are right behind us." Samuel navigated the back roads of Silver Creek. "How is he alive?" I whispered. Samuel fixated on the rearview mirror. Arthur was always 3 steps ahead. He saw Julian tampering with the valves on the security feed a week before the blast. We pulled up to the workshop. In the dark, it looked like a blackened skeleton. "We have 5 minutes," Samuel said, handing me a heavy flashlight. "Julian's security team patrols every 20 minutes. They're looking for the same thing we are." We stepped through the charred remains. I moved toward the corner where the floor safe was hidden. My hands shook as I dialed the combination. Arthur's birthday. The lid creaked open, revealing a thick ledger and a series of encrypted hard drives. I flipped through the ledger. It was a record of every bribe Julian had paid and every debt he owed to Silas Thorne. The workshop land was his only way to stay out of prison. Arthur wasn't just in the way. He was the only witness to a criminal conspiracy. A beam of light cut through the air. "I knew you couldn't stay away, Mother," Julian's voice echoed. He stood at the entrance, silhouetted by moonlight. Behind him stood 2 men in tactical gear. Julian wasn't wearing his grieving sun mask anymore. "Give me the ledger, Eleanor," Julian said. "You don't understand the forces at play. This is about $1 billion future. Dad was a relic. Don't make yourself one too." He raised a hand, and a mercenary stepped forward, his hand resting on a holster. Samuel stepped between me and the gunman. "You're just like your grandfather, Julian." "All ego and no soul," Samuel spat. Julian laughed dryly. "Soul doesn't pay for private jets. Now, Mother, last chance. The ledger. Or we make this a double tragedy." My phone vibrated. "The back hatch is open. Throw the flashlight to the left and run." I hurled the heavy iron flashlight into a stack of metal pipes. The clatter was deafening. The mercenaries turned toward the noise for a split second. Samuel shoved me toward the ventilation hatch. I scrambled through, the metal tearing at my coat. A gunshot echoed, followed by Samuel's grunt of pain. "Go, Eleanor. Find Arthur," he screamed. I tumbled into the cold mud of the alleyway, clutching the ledger. I ran through the woods, branches clawing at my face. I could hear the mercenaries crashing through the brush behind me. I reached the river, where a small rowing boat was tied to a rotted pier. Sitting in the boat, his face pale, was Arthur. Seeing Arthur was like watching a ghost materialize. "Get in, Eleanor," he rasped. As I tumbled in, the first mercenary broke through the tree line, a red laser sight dancing across the water. Arthur pushed off, letting the current sweep us into the mist. A bullet whinned past my ear, but the fog swallowed us. I touched Arthur's face to ensure he was real. "You're alive," I sobbed. "They tried to kill you, Arthur. Our own sons." Arthur rowed with grim determination toward a hidden cove. "They didn't just try, Eleanor," Arthur whispered. "They thought they succeeded. Julian was the architect, but Thorne provided the muscle. They needed me dead because I found the offshore accounts they were using to launder money through the shop." We reached a fishing shack called Shelter 4. Inside, Arthur lit a kerosene lamp. I saw the burns along his neck and arms. I placed the ledger on the table. "I have the evidence, Arthur. Julian has the police. He said the law is on his side." Arthur scanned the ledger. "The law follows the money, Eleanor. This money leads straight to Thorne's throat." Julian is a pawn who thinks he's a king. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a video call. Arthur nodded slowly. I answered. Julian's face filled the screen from his high-rise office. I know you found him, Mother. You have 10 minutes to bring that ledger to the main road. If you don't, Caleb is going to have an accident. The camera showed Caleb tied to a chair in a van. He's your brother, I screamed. Julian didn't flinch. He's a liability. Silas Thorne doesn't like loose ends. 10 minutes. Bring the ledger, or you can bury another son. The screen went black. I looked at Arthur, my heart shattering. Arthur pulled an old shotgun from a floorboard. He thinks he's playing chess, Arthur growled. But I'm a mechanic. I know how to break a machine. He handed me an encrypted drive. If I don't make it, get this to the sheriff. It's the video of Julian. You can't go alone, I grabbed his arm. He's my son, Eleanor, Arthur said. I'm the one who raised a monster, so I have to face it. Stay here. If you hear 3 whistles, it's safe. If you don't, run and never look back. He disappeared into the fog. I sat in the dim light, clutching the drive. Every sound felt like a threat. I realized Julian wanted to erase every trace of Arthur because Arthur was a reminder of Julian's own rot. I couldn't stay hidden. I stood up and followed Arthur into the dark. I followed the muddy trail toward the road. Up ahead, headlights cut through the mist. A black van was idling on the shoulder. Julian's voice echoed, 5 minutes left, Mother. Don't make me do this. I stepped out, the ledger clutched to my chest. Julian was leaning against the van, smoking. Silas Thorne stood beside him, stone-faced. Between them, Caleb was slumped in the van door, mouth taped, eyes frantic. I have the ledger, Julian, I said. But you have to let Caleb go first. Julian took a long drag of his cigarette. The ledger first, Elena. You lost your bargaining power the moment you stepped out. Thorne doesn't like to wait. He reached out a hand, his fingers twitching with greed. I held my ground. Suddenly, a low whistle sounded from the darkness. Julian froze. Before he could react, a deafening blast from Arthur's shotgun shattered the van's rear window. Chaos broke out. Thorne dived for cover as Arthur emerged from the fog like a vengeful spirit. The game is over, Julian, Arthur roared. He fired again, forcing Thorne to retreat. In the confusion, I ran to the van and tore the tape from Caleb's mouth. Go, Caleb! Run to the river! He scrambled out and disappeared into the mist. You're supposed to be dead, Julian shrieked, firing blindly with a pistol. He wasn't a businessman anymore. He was a broken child having a murderous tantrum. Thorne, realizing the situation was lost, began backing away, leaving Julian alone. Arthur kept advancing. You didn't want a legacy, Julian. You wanted a graveyard. Arthur reached the van and slammed the butt of the shotgun down on Julian's hand. Julian cried out, his pistol clattering away. I saw true terror in my son's eyes. Thorne fired a parting shot that grazed Arthur's shoulder, then fled. Arthur winced but didn't let go of Julian. Eleanor, call the sheriff, he shouted. I pulled out my phone, but bright flashing lights were already illuminating the fog from the road. The sirens of Silver Creek screamed through the night. Sheriff Harrison had been tracking Thorne's signal thanks to Samuel. Julian looked at the police and smiled desperately. It's your word against mine, Dad. I'll have the best lawyers. I'll be out by morning. He didn't know about the drive in my pocket or the live feed Samuel had been broadcasting. The police swarmed the area. Thorne was tackled in the brush, and Julian was forced into the mud. As handcuffs clicked, his downfall finally became real. Mom, please. Tell them it was an accident, Julian pleaded as they led him away. I looked at the son I had loved for 45 years and felt only cold finality. The only accident here, Julian, was believing you had a heart, I said, turning away. The following weeks were a whirlwind of investigations. Julian's empire collapsed as the ledger revealed rot deeper than a single deal. Thorne began singing to prosecutors, ensuring Julian's legal shield turned into a cage of his own making. The trial was the most difficult chapter. I had to look at Julian in a courtroom as he was charged with conspiracy and attempted murder. He no longer looked like a titan. He was sentenced to 30 years in a federal penitentiary. Caleb took a different path. While he faced consequences for his silence, the court recognized he saved us. He was sentenced to community service. He spent every day for a year at the workshop, helping Arthur repair the emotional damage. Arthur and I didn't rebuild the workshop as it was. We turned it into the Vance Technical Institute, a nonprofit teaching the trade to youth. Arthur, though his hands were scarred, became a mentor. He taught kids that honesty is the best tool. On the anniversary of the funeral, we returned to the cemetery. We didn't go to mourn. We went to close the door on a ghost. We had the headstone removed, the one over an empty grave. We sat on a bench, watching the sunset paint the sky. "We survived, Eleanor," Arthur said, taking my hand. His grip was firm. I looked at my phone, which once brought messages of terror. It was now filled with photos of students and messages from Caleb. The silence in Silver Creek was finally peaceful. We had lost a son to his own greed, but we had found each other again in the ashes. As the stars poked through the twilight, I realized the only true legacy is the truth you leave behind and the love you fight to protect. The town of Silver Creek eventually forgot the scandal, but the Institute stood as a beacon. Samuel remained our head of security and Arthur's right hand. Every morning, the sound of metal on metal reminded us that we were still standing. Julian sent letters from prison filled with blame and bitterness. I never opened them. Some bridges are not meant to be rebuilt, and some wounds are too deep for forgiveness. I chose to focus on the living, not the shadows of the past. Caleb grew into a man Arthur could finally be proud of. He married a local girl and had a son of his own. They named him Arthur. When I hold that baby, I see a future that isn't built on glass towers, but on something much stronger. Arthur's scars eventually faded into white lines, but he never complained. He said they were his service medals for protecting what mattered. We spent our evenings on the porch, listening to the crickets and the distant hum of the river. Silas Thorne disappeared into the prison system, his name a footnote in a larger file. The developers moved on to other towns, other targets. But Silver Creek was different now. The people were more watchful, more connected. I kept the silver wedding band Arthur had left in the fire. It sits in a velvet box on my dress, a reminder of the day I almost lost everything and the message that saved me. I am alive. 3 words that changed the world. Sometimes, at night, I still reach for my phone when it vibrates, a ghost of the old fear flickering in my chest. But then, I see a text from Arthur asking if I want tea, and the fear dissolves into the warmth of our home. We are the Vance family. We were broken, hunted, and betrayed. We are still here. And in the quiet corners of the workshop, the truth continues to roar, louder than any engine Julian ever tried to build.